Hey, and welcome to the Ozzstar Cars channel. Today, we're going to check out this BMW M3 behind me here. It's got a nasty groan sound, and I believe it's coming from the power steering pump. The way we can tell that is when you get in the car, you start it, you hear a groaning sound, but when you turn the steering wheel left or right, it gets much louder. I'm going to take you in a little bit closer, show you what's going on. We'll check it out. So I fired the car up. I can hear the kind of groan sound right now. You probably can't pick it up on camera here, but anyway, I'm just going to reach in, turn the steering wheel, and we should hear the groan. And you can actually feel it in the steering wheel. It's kind of hesitating. You can see it, the front wheel. I don't know if it's showing up, but it's like kind of bouncing. It does not sound good at all. So why don't we pop the hood and take a closer look. So that groaning can be heard on basically any car with a hydraulic power steering. Of course, a lot of newer cars nowadays are all electric, but let me show you where the fill is, because the reservoir, the first place you want to do, or the first thing, is check the fluid level. Now this one, well, let me show you here for a second. This has a supercharger, so normally you'd have easier access than this. But let me show you where the cap is, and it's all the way down here. I'm touching it with the light, so you can see that cap. I can't even get it on film. It's just so tight in here. So by the time I reach in here, you won't see a thing. I'll reach down in there. I'm going to unscrew that cap and check the fluid level. Now, I did see evidence of power steering fluid on the ground, so this thing is definitely puking fluid. So that's telling me we got a problem, probably with cavitation getting into the system. And what that means is air gets in there and it foams up and it's kind of bubbling over, I guess you could call it, foaming out. And that could be due to a bad power steering line. But when we get under the car, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the first thing we're gonna do is glove up, because who needs hand sanitizer when you can just put on gloves in this day and age, right? Because basically the fluid in this car is just automatic transmission fluid, Dexon. It's DEXON, which is like a General Motors transmission fluid. All right, let me reach in and grab this cap, unscrew this sucker. It actually screws on, and it's very tight in here. Now, if you had to add fluid, you definitely got to use a funnel, that's for sure. Here it comes. Hopefully I won't drop it. Okay, so this is our cap right here and our fluid level. So we could see this is actually just barely on the tip of it. So it's a little bit low, but that makes sense because it's been leaking out. So let me just take a quick look down in there. Visually, I see fluid in there. Let me show you, and it looks nasty. Oh boy, here we go. Get you a good shot of that nasty fluid. Hopefully you can see it. So see how it should be, red, and it is reddish tint, but it's almost like mud. So we've got three types of hoses here, or three hoses involved with the system. This one here, now here's our pump right here. So we've got two lines. This one here is called a suction line. This is the fatty, and that runs over here to the reservoir. I'm hoping you can see. I try to get the light set up as best I can, but that's underneath where we just checked or pulled the fluid cap, the reservoir cap. So back there is the suction. Then you've got this other hose that goes to the reservoir. This is the return line, and that's got this crazy metal pipe that's running this way and that way. I guess that's for cooling probably. Goes to our rack and pinion, and that's what actually forces the wheels left or right, or assists. So that's that line. And then you've got the high pressure line, which comes from the pump and goes all the way back to the back of the rack here, and I cannot film it. I don't think I can't get my camera in there. But anyway, it comes down around and right into the rack. So you've got the suction, the high pressure, and then the return line. And those are basically the three lines that we're gonna change out. So let me grab some sockets and we'll start taking these bolts out right here. There's a couple of clamps way up in there, and it looks like those have probably been swapped out. I'm not sure. No, I think they're original. So the other interesting thing with these BMWs, and I'm not sure about the other Euro cars, but these reservoirs, when you change out the hoses, of course we're going to put new fresh fluid in, they need to be replaced, or should be, because there's a filter built into the reservoir. So that's something pretty important to change out, especially this car has, I think, about 150 something thousand miles on it. So we're going to swap that out at the same time, and I'll show you what parts I'm using. And what else did I want to tell you? I think that's about it. Now, what I found, and why I'm going for the lines first before replacing this pump, is in the past, from my experience, I've seen where lines did not leak fluid, but they were actually sucking air. So like on the suction side, and drawing in air even though fluid wasn't leaking out, and that was causing the cavitation, that foaming. And when you get air in the system with that foam, that's going to cause this steering pump to whine. So, you know, it could be a bad pump, but I don't have a high pressure gauge to put in line here with the high pressure side. You can actually, in series, put this gauge in and then see what kind of pressure this is putting out. Now, the reason I'm not suspicious of this pump right now is when the car is cold, first started up, it wasn't bad. The noise as far as the groaning, and when you turned it, really wasn't symptomatic. But as soon as it warmed up, things started to get warm, we started having an issue, and that's when, of course, there's going to be expansion, right? So things are moving and opening up, and that's what I'm going to assume with this. Before removing any of the lines, I like to spray all the connections down here and get off any excess dirt and oil and what have you. Some schmoo, as they say, and hopefully that will keep some contamination out. So I'm just spraying that down, and then I'll start disconnecting. I don't think I'll be able to get it on film. Whew, excuse me, because I just sucked in some serious brake clean fumes. Woo, that's strong. Anyway, I'm not sure if I can get that on film or not because it's going to be tight, but I'll try my best. So I started by disconnecting this, took this bolt here, this banjo bolt, out of the suction side hose, out of the power steering pump to let the excess drip into this drain pan down here. And there's two crush washers, I guess you call them. They're kind of like a gasket. One goes on this side here. As this goes in, you push this bolt through, and then you put the other one on that side and then bolt that right in. Oops. And by the way, that's a 22 millimeter if you need to know that size. So what I'll do next, now that that's out of the way, I'm going to reach up in there and, well, maybe I'll disconnect this side here first, but I got to reach up and take out two worm clamps up there, hose clamps, and disconnect it from the reservoir. And then the reservoir is held in with another clamp. So now I've got a 7 millimeter socket up there on that hose clamp that's on the reservoir. And I'm just going to back that one off. That's for the this big line here that goes to the rack, which is called the return line. And you probably cannot see what I'm doing, but I'm just removing a hose clamp and trying not to get power steering fluid down my arm, which is a trick in itself. Let me pull this hose off. Let's see if it'll pull. There it goes. All right, and we'll dump any excess out here into our pan. There we go. Let it pee. It's a mess, you know, but what are you going to do? So, just let it drip on out. Let it bleed, mama. Let it bleed. Oh, and by the way, here's that hose clamp, so that's the 7 millimeter. Put this up there. All right, next I want to disconnect this high pressure hose from the power steering pump. It's a 19 millimeter, and hopefully I can get some leverage on it here. Get that baby loose. Come on, there it goes. And the reason is, if I get this loose and out of my way, pull it down, I'll have access to get to that reservoir, to the clamp that's holding that in place, because if I didn't mention it, we're definitely going to be replacing that too because of the built-in filter. And I think I did tell you guys about that. So let me get this one loose, and I'm just going to put this banjo bolt back in once I got this out. That way we don't lose it and have another headache on our hands. So this also has two washers, two crush washers, and that seal it. Not too much fluid came out of this one, So that's good. Bring that down over here. Hook that over there like that. Alrighty. And then what you can't see is I'm going to disconnect it over here now. There's another 19 millimeter, which is, can you see my finger? Right back in here. There's no way for me to, well, maybe I could film it. Hold on a second. Let me get another flashlight and I'll move the camera. All right, you see these, there's a bolt here, there's a 21 and then a 19, or I'm sorry, a 22 and a 19, right where the flashlight's pointing. So that's the high pressure on the right is gonna have that 19, and then the 22 here is the line for this right here, which is our, that's the return. That's the return right here. So that ties into this. It's like a big old snake. It just slithers right around and you can see it. So right there, this doohickey going zigzagging and up and around and all over the place. An engineering marvel. It's a BMW special, I guess. So I got my 19 on a 3-inch extension on my 1/2-inch ratchet, and that seems to fit in there okay. And we get that a little loosey-goosey, back it out. So now with this hose out of the way, we should have plenty of room to get to that well, I don't know about plenty of room, but we should have much more room, let's put it that way, to get to the reservoir. Again, this high pressure hose has same setup. The banjo bolt has two washers on it. One just fell down in the bucket, and here it comes out now. Let me grab this one, get this out of here, and we'll let that drain. That'll probably bleed for another half hour. Get that out of our way. And like I say, I'm going to put this bolt back in here. Then nothing gets mixed up or lost. And it may even keep some crap out, and possibly some debris fell. So that's good. And now I can get to this other hose back here and get this suction line, this one here, out. All right. So I'm getting this suction line hose loose now with that 7 millimeter. And let me tell you, it's a reach, especially doing it off the ground here, up on ramps. So that hose clamp is nice and loose now, and hopefully it's loose enough where I can pull this suction line off. Come on, baby. May have to get a screwdriver in there and pop it. Let's see. Oh boy. Not only is it loose, everything's slippery under here. Oops. That's why I got safety glasses on. That stuff, that hose just popped up and splashed me. Come on. Oh boy, she's stuck on there. All right. Oh boy, come on. Come on, you son biscuit. All right, so it's being difficult. What I want to do now is get a screwdriver and just kind of twist on it. Twist on that hose. Try to pop it off. See if I can break that seal. It's awful tight. Oh boy. Oh boy, it's being murder. Come on. Oh, the struggle is real right now. Come on, I'm spinning on there. Come on. Come on, you son of a gun. All right, let me grab my hose pliers. All right, I got a pair of these hose pliers right here, and hopefully that'll help me because, man,
this suction line right here is being very difficult. So the question is, can I fit it in here? Oh, it's tight. Holy shit. Wow, that does not want to come off. Holy crap, holy. Oh boy. Ah, there we go. Woo, that sucker was on tight. That suction line was really tight. I had to grab hold of it and yank it off of there, so it's out now. So we just got one line left. Return line next. Oh boy. I'll tell you, those banjo bolts are tight. Very tight. They've got some torque on them, that's for sure. They need to seal well, you know. And then we've got one little 8mm. Can you see it right here? One little 8mm, it looks like, bolt. We'll have to take off to get that line out. So here's the bolt here. A little bit of leakage. I think I said this bracket for the return line, that was an 8. It's actually a 10mm. So let's take that out. There we go. And this thing should be, oh, there's one more over there too that I forgot, almost forgot about, right here. Let's turn the light. Right over here is another one. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And they're not very tight at all. You don't have to go crazy when you put them back in. Just small, you know, right into the rack, which is aluminum. So now we just have to kind of move your camera, move you guys here, so you can see what I'm doing, maybe. Just pop that up and over and out. And here's that big snake. Done. So up here is our reservoir, and there's a clamp holding that on, another 10mm. So let me zip that out. Hopefully it won't be too brutal putting it back in. There's our 10mm bolt. And we'll put that to the side. And now I've got to reach up in there and get that sucker out. So wish me luck. Oh boy, it's still bleeding. Bend the bracket back a little bit. Hopefully it'll pop over and out. If not, we'll be pulling everything off from the top, which I don't really want to do. Be careful of the starters here. We don't want any spark action. Because to get it out from the top wouldn't be too hard unless you have a supercharger in the way, which we have. So now I can sneak this out, hopefully this way. Hopefully this will come out through here somehow. There it is, coming around, down, and she's out. So that's good. We'll put a new one of these in next. Here's our new stuff. I'm gonna go with the Rhine. That brand right there, R-E-I-N. This is the high pressure right here, is that part number. Here's our suction hose right here. There's our number for that. And then here's our return hose. And then of course we got a reservoir, which is right here. And what I did was I matched everything up, you know, took the old, compared it to the new stuff before I took it out of the bag. Make sure everything is going to be the right part here, at least it looks like it. Everything kind of has the same bend, and we should be good to go. So with all the old stuff out, I just wanted to show you the components. So that's our reservoir up there, and it's got the two fittings. And this rubber line here, this thicker one, that's our suction line. This one here, this other rubber line, goes to the metal line, which goes right to the rack. That's the return for that. And here's our high pressure line here that goes from the pump to the rack. And here's some old fluid, and I was looking at it, I just, you know, it was draining out. and you see these, it looks like blisters on film here. I don't know what that is. That's moisture or some other fluid added in there. But anyway, it should be nice and bright red and shiny like the stuff we put in. I'm going to take you over to the whiteboard and I'll show you how the power steering system actually functions and how these all interconnect. Okay, welcome to the whiteboard of knowledge. So we've got the power steering system here. In this case, we've got a hydraulic system. This isn't like a newer car that may have electric steering. That's something completely different. But anyway, I drew out the three main components to help you understand what's going on here and where our three hoses are actually connecting and the way they're working. So in this case, in this car, we have a rack and pinion steering. So hydraulic fluid, high pressure, is pushed into this pinion or this rack, and it helps assist moving the wheels left to right. These are actually supposed to be tires. I know this guy can use an alignment, right? It's pretty bad. But anyway, I'm not an artist. Anyhow, in fact, this is my daughter's whiteboard. I borrowed it from her. So anyway, that gives you the assist. Now, you may have a steering box and not a rack and pinion. It has a pitman arm on it, and that pitman arm is going to do the same thing, basically, help you move your wheels or tires left to right. Now, over here we have the pump, and the pump is driven by this pulley, which is run by the serpentine belt. So as the engine's running, you're getting pressure built up. There's small veins in there internally that build pressure, and we have 2 ports on the pump. Now up here is our reservoir. This is the cap. This is where you would add fluid. Check your fluid level. So you can take that off, add fluid, look in there, see what's going on. You look for those bubbles, and you'll see that here in the video. But anyway, that has 2 ports here too. So what I want to do is show you the 3 hoses that we changed out and how they work with each other here. So, and it may not necessarily be in this order, but as far as the way the hoses connect to this side or that side, I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes here. So anyhow, we've got this line right here, and we're going to draw this right in here, this blue line, and this is called our suction. So suction, there we go. This is a suction line right here, this blue one. And basically the pump is drawing in the fluid. Imagine, there's a fluid in here. It's drawing fluid in, pulling in, pressurizing it, and we'll do that in red. So that builds pressure. This comes over here like this, down into the rack, okay, like that. So this is a high pressure, and my markers are crapping out, but you can see that. This is high pressure. And yes, I'm actually right-handed. I write with both hands. I'm a lefty when I prefer. I know I'll hear about it. So anyway, I'm not a lefty. I just prefer to write with my left hand. So we've got our high pressure coming in. And now that excess pressure, or pressure that has to be bled off, is our return. So from this part here, this would actually, let's go with blue on that one. This will actually feed back to the pump. Or to the reservoir, I'm sorry, to the reservoir. So you see the cycle here. So we have, hose 1, hose 2, and hose 3. So we'll put this return. Okay, so that's our 3 lines. Now sometimes under there, they're going to crisscross, and that's why, there's a combination of metal piping with rubber hose, because it has to bend or flex. The engineers have to have room to move this around. It's kind of like a spaghetti nightmare in there sometimes. But anyway, basically that's our whole system. It's pretty simple. 1, 2, and 3. And hopefully that'll explain what we needed to know here. So all the new hoses are in. The new reservoir is in up there. There you go. Got all 3 hoses on. Everything's tied up or connected now. Don't forget the crush washers. In between the bolts, you've got one on the inside and one on the outside of those banjos. These little doohickeys. Don't forget to put those in. I put new ones in that came with the hoses. Now it's time to go up top, get that cap off, and fill the reservoir with the Dexron fluid. Top it off, start the car, let it pump through. There's going to be a lot of air in there. I'll probably take it off these ramps and then start getting the fluid, or getting the air out by turning the steering left to right. So here's the fluid we'll use right there.
And I've got one of these real long funnels because that sucker's way down in there. There's that new, I got the cap off. So what I'm going to do now is just slide this down in there. And like I said, or I don't know if I said it, but earlier, I'll top it off here and then start the car and let that kind of suck through the system, and then slowly start bleeding it out that way by turning the steering wheel left to right, slowly all the way, one side to the next. And that should work the foam out. And then of course I'm going to go down below and check for leaks. So if there's a leak down there, air can be getting sucked into the system, and that's not going to be good. We'll still be getting a groaning sound. So let's get to the next step. Okay, so got the fluid in. You didn't need to see how that's done. Just pour it through your funnel, right? You can hear it. Well, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's no more loud whine. There's the new fluid down in there. Let's see if I can get this shot. So I worked the wheel left to right, turned it slowly left to right. I don't hear any whining. Let's try it now. I did it a few times. You can see how much smoother the wheel is now. Hopefully you can see. Before it was jerky and jumping around, and we had the groan sound. So no more groaning. So that's good. I probably did this 5 or 6 times, and what we'll do now is I'll let this idle for a little bit, let it warm up. I'm going to pull it back up on the ramps because it's so low, it's very hard to see under the car. So I'll bring it up. I wipe down the area here so it's clean, and I'll let it sit for a little bit, and I'm going to check for leaks at all the fittings, and hopefully everything looks good. And remember, don't forget to use your hand sanitizer. Might be hard to hear me, but if you look in there, you can see the fluid's flowing, and I don't see many air bubbles, so that's a good thing. We don't want to see that foam up. Definitely flowing well. So I just took this outside in the light here, in the sunlight, and this is the old fluid, and you can see how muddy it looks because it is brown, that's for sure. It doesn't smell too burnt, but that's something you also want to smell for, I guess. But what's important here is I don't see any metal filings and stuff in here. So if I saw a lot of metal, I would definitely be starting to look at the pump and as a culprit. So I don't see any metal filings, no sparklies, and that's a good sign. But the fluid is definitely shot. There, I think you can see a little better there. But anyway, just wanted to tell you that, so you got something else to do to diagnose. I wanted to show you something down here on this pipe, this rubber hose anyway, not the pipe, but the hose. And what happens here, these, you can't feel it, but this part's still a little bit soft, but over here it's like hard as a rock. And these things can crack. They can allow air to get in. They start to deteriorate internally. So the rubber starts to decompose, I guess you call it, and you get kind of that black crap in there, which is not good. Inside the reservoir here is a filter, so that filter can get clogged up, get all kinds of crap. Now 22 years, it's time to change it out. All right, I'm back from the test drive, and the good thing is there was no moaning or groaning, so the power steering pump must be satisfied. What I did here, changing out those hoses, I kind of thought that was the issue, and the best thing would have been to have a high pressure gauge to test that high pressure side of the pump. But here's my thought and why. I don't own one of those, but here's why I thought it was the hoses and not the pump. When the car was cold, there basically were no symptoms. So there was no whining, no moaning, groaning. The steering felt good. As soon as it started to warm up, it would progressively get louder and louder, the problem. So, and I would feel it, that stiffness, kind of jerkiness in the steering wheel. So anyhow, the hoses solved the problem. The best way to, like I said, is have that gauge. That's why I didn't go to the power steering pump, just from experience. Now, as far as the rack's concerned, the rack and pinion, let's say you're turning left and it felt normal, everything was okay. And then you went to turn right and you had a lot of resistance, and it was difficult or hard to do, or it made crazy, the pump was making crazy sounds. Then you want to actually go and check that rack and pinion and do some further diagnostics with that. So anyway, it worked out good. I know my buddy who owns the car, he'll be happy. He didn't need to pay for a pump that wasn't necessary, and it's ready to go down the road. So hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked it. Smash that thumbs up down there, and that would be great. I appreciate it. I hope everything's going well with you and your family with this crazy virus going around. Stay safe. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the support that you give my channel. It's a fantastic thing here on YouTube. Other than that, comments and questions down below. I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.